Hello everyone and welcome back to my opinion. And Australia have beaten South Africa by 3 wickets in the second semi-final and will be facing India and Ahmedabad on the 19th. On the playing 11s of both sides, starting off with South Africa, they surprisingly went with the 11 that I'd suggested in my previous video, where they played George Kitse ahead of Lungi Ngidi and played Tabre Shamsi. It was quite a pleasant surprise, as I didn't think they'd learned from the mistakes when they played India at this venue. Tabre Shamsi was bafflingly rested in the previous game along with Marco Jansen. It was good to see him play today. And George Kitse, after taking a 4-4 in the previous game, I was very happy that he played in this game. As like I've said, you need pace to be successful at the Eden Gardens, and they went with that thinking. And Bavuma was not 100% fit, but he played this game ahead of Reza Hendricks. And on Australia, they included Marnus Labuschagne ahead of Marcus Stoinis. So once again, they opened the 11 that I said that they should go with. Is a correct decision, as on this surface where there'd be some assistance for the spinners, Steve Smith and Marnus Labuschagne at 3 and 4, even though Marnus Labuschagne didn't bat at 4 in this game. Those two in the side to build an innings through the middle phase is vital, as apart from David Warner, the others don't play the game where they graft for runs, especially on this side of the service, which is required. So it was good from them that they went with Labuschagne ahead of Marcus Stoinis, and Mitchell Starc played ahead of Shonat, but I didn't think that was a big surprise. And Bavuma won the toss and chose to bat first. So this was the correct decision. So from the 11s and from the decision at the toss, things are going well for South Africa. The South African openers walked out to bat, and in the last ball, the first over, Bavuma nicked off of the bowling of Mitchell Starc and the catch was taken. There's been a debate as to whether he should have played this game, since he admitted he wasn't 100% fit at the toss. And my view on that is there are two aspects to this. Firstly, if you're solely considering players playing vital games that are not 100% fit, if Quinton de Kock had an injury going to the game, or he carried a knock from the previous game, and he had to play semi-final in the next game, they would have even taken an 80% fit Quinton de Kock to play this game. So I don't have much of a problem with that. Secondly, form does come into the equation, where even though he was doing very well before the World Cup, Bavuma hasn't had a great World Cup. Reza Hendricks, he's played 2 innings and he scored an 82 against England the first time that he played. And like I said in my previous video, touch players opening their batting on this kind of service would be handy, and Bavuma and Reza Hendricks are touch players. So if you're comparing form, you would prefer Reza Hendricks, but I didn't mind Bavuma playing if he was 100% fit to play, and it said that he hadn't gone for a second scan after sustaining that injury in the game against Afghanistan. And the argument that probably hasn't been made too much, but if you're thinking, okay, he's led the side until now and he's secured a semi-final spot, and if he was close to 100% fit, you wouldn't mind it playing. What I'd say to that is, whether Bavuma or Markram would be captains, in this side, I said in my previous video as well, the coaching staff seems to have a greater influence on the tactics than the captains. So whether Bavuma was captaining or whether Markram was captaining, we've seen questionable decisions being made. And so I didn't really think it'd make a difference on the captaincy front, whoever was captain. So if Bavuma wasn't 100% fit, I would have said Reza Hendricks should play ahead of him and Markram should be captain, because whether Bavuma would be playing or not, there wouldn't have been too much of a difference. It wouldn't be like other sides where they seem to have more control in terms of the tactics even before the game. But they went with Bavuma, and unfortunately he was dismissed in this game. Australia did everything they could to put pressure on South Africa in the first 2 overs of this game. Josh Hazlewood was once again outstanding. As I said in my previous video, I didn't think he needed to open the bowling to be successful, but I knew he would open the bowling. And since he hits the length and bowls in the low 140s, especially on this type of surface, I thought he would go very well, and he did. And Mitchell Starc was much better today. I think this is the first time he's turned up thus far in this campaign, but he turned up in a knockout game. He went for 4 runs in his first overs, picking up a wicket in the first over that he bowled. He bowled a few half volleys here and there, but I thought the fielding from David Warner and Marnus Labuschagne, the cover and extra cover regions, was outstanding. And they were the reason why the pressure was building as well, partly the reason why the pressure was building, where had those deliveries gone for 4, then maybe someone like a Quinton de Kock wouldn't have played the shot that he played to be dismissed when the score was on 8. So I thought the way both those two fielded was partly the reason why the pressure could build. And Australia won this game in the first 2 overs, 24 for 4, where I thought South Africa were quite good from there to make a game out of it like they did. But 24 for 4, where I talked about South Africa's lack of batting depth, where you got Marco Jansen at number 7. And like I said, when I compared him and Ravindra Jadeja, where how often would you walk out to bat on this type of surface where you've got to be explosive? I think when you're approaching things as a number 7, you've got to look to go with 1s and 2s in the odd boundary here and there, like a Jadeja does do when I made that comparison. And you saw how Marco Jansen went the first ball that he faced. So in that situation where you've not got too much batting to come, South Africa did very well to make a game out of it, but unfortunately they fell on the wrong side in this game. A partnership ensued between Heinrich Klaasen and David Miller. The Arena ride on the scores on 44 for 4, and after the resumption, Josh Hazlewood bowled 2 maidens and finished with figures of 2 for 12 and 8. Ridiculous figures, but he didn't bowl again after that, surprisingly, and I'll get to that in a bit. But around his 2 overs after the resumption, Pat Cummins and Adam Zampa were bowling, and Heinrich Klaasen and David Miller didn't find things too difficult at all. On David Miller, he's been a much improved player of spin in the last couple of years and likes going over mid-wicket when the pacers and spinners bowl in this hitting arc. He did that today against Adam Zampa. And Pat Cummins, I've said this before, he's not at his best bowling as a defensive bowler, but he's got to do that when you've got Mitchell Starc and Josh Hazlewood already bowling with a new ball. His go-to delivery is the slow ball bouncer, but he didn't look like a threat when he was bowling today, and he hasn't looked like a threat when being a defensive bowler in ODIs generally. There was one opportunity where the ball fell well short of the fielder, but Heinrich Klaasen tried to go for the pull shot. A slow ball was bowled, but a wicket wasn't taken. And when Pat Cummins and Adam Zampa were bowling, this partnership was blossoming quite well. And Heinrich Klaasen started off playing second field to David Miller, and the 2 shots that set him on his way were the consecutive 6s off the bowling of Adam Zampa. And this partnership, especially when the 100 mark was crossed, it was going quite well. And just when it was going well, after getting a boundary off Travis Head, you saw against the Netherlands where the straight ball was a delivery that spelled the demise of the South African batsman. And you saw it in this game, Travis Head bowling a straight ball and Heinrich Klaasen somehow missing it and the ball hitting the stumps. I'd said this even before, even though Heinrich Klaasen has got front foot play and back foot play against spin, there's a difference between subcontinental players of spin and players of spin from other countries. And you've got a case where I feel subcontinental players of spin wouldn't have been vulnerable to a dismissal from a straight ball from a spinner like Heinrich Klaasen was today, even though he's a fantastic player of spin, and you saw what happened. And Marco Jansen, like I'd said in a previous segment, I didn't back him to walk out earlier, especially in this situation where you're playing on a surface like this and you've got to graft an innings from that point in time. He was dismissed for a golden duck with a ball hit him in front, and once again a straight delivery. So the straight delivery has been dismissing the South African batsmen. You saw that against the Netherlands and in this game, and after the partnership had gone so well, 2 back-to-back wickets, it really undid what that partnership had done. As it dug them out of an initial hole, but 119 for 6 wasn't going to mean you were in a great position either. And it was all on David Miller from that point in time because, like I said, South Africa don't have too much batting depth because you've got Marco Jansen at 7, who doesn't provide as much assurance, especially in these situations, as others. This is all up to one guy after this point. Gerald Coetzee scored a vital 19 where he should have scored more. I didn't get that dismissal. The ball's hit his arm and the keeper's caught it and he's consulted David Miller and then walked off. You've seen Virat Kohli in the 2019 World Cup game against Pakistan where the bat clicked and after the ball passed close to the bat when he was trying to go for a pull shot, he then, I think a pull or hook shot, he then walked off. But at least the ball's passed close to the bat and didn't hit his arm directly. Whereas in this case, he's tried to go for a kind of a pull or hook shot. The ball hit his arm and then gone to the keeper. Surely you'd know whether the ball's hit the bat or not. So I didn't get that. Rabada scored 10 off 12 where he hit a 6 off Mitchell Starc. But an outstanding innings, a World Cup epic from David Miller. 101 of 116 where it's tied with 24 for 4 when you've not got the batting depth. An outstanding knock. A couple of years back when he hadn't rediscovered his heights, when just before the season where he played for the Gujarat Titans in IPO 2022, he'd said he'd wanted to finish games like MS Dhoni does when he was playing for the Rajasthan Royals. And I thought we've seen him finish games before, and he was still in a case where it was a few years where he hadn't really done too much consistently, especially when playing in the IPL. and you thought he was likely to get a contract for the Gujarat Titans in IPL 2022. And since then, in the last couple of years, I can say, and I don't usually say this, and especially considering how big of a name MS Dhoni is, but in terms of being that omniscient finisher that MS Dhoni has been, I think for the non-subcontinental sides, or generally the non-Indian sides, you could say, someone who would emulate what MS Dhoni does, I'd say David Miller right now is closest to that. Where, yes, no one can be MS Dhoni, but being that omniscient finisher where he can walk out 24 for 4 and play the innings that he's played, and walk out when the team has set a foundation for him to explode, and he can explode. So I think that statement is starting to materialize, or that ambition is starting to materialize now. So watching him bat in the last couple of years has been entertaining, and I'm very, very happy for him that the player we saw in 2013 and 2014 for the then Kings 11 Punjab has materialized in the last couple of years and has been even better. So I'm very happy for him that he's played this epic knock, and it really should have flourished even more. Where I know Australia have won this game, they bowled out South Africa for 212, but Pat Cummins, 3 for 51 and 9.4. If you purely look at the stat, you think, oh, we had a good game. In my view, the decisions that he made could have cost Australia this game, where Josh Hazlewood doesn't bowl the last 2 overs, when even after the rain break, he's bowled 2 consecutive maidens. And I think there was a 6, then a wide, and David Miller tried to go for another 6 again, and Travis Head caught the catch on the boundary. If that delivery had gone for 6, I thought at least 20 runs would have been scored in that over. You've got Mitchell Starc to bowl next, and with David Miller still there, maybe they could have got 10 or 12 off that. And even if Pat Cummins didn't want to bowl the last over, who have you got to bowl? Josh Hazlewood at the death. So whoever had bowled that last over would have gone for at least 12 or 15 runs, and 240 could have been achieved, and this game would have looked quite different. So Pat Cummins, 351 in 9.4. If you purely look at the stats, you think, oh, that's been a good performance. But I thought the decisions that he made could have cost Australia this game. And it's very unfortunate that David Miller couldn't get that ball over Travis Head for 6. But had that delivery gone for 6, South Africa would have got a 240, and this would look quite different. But a fantastic innings from David Miller, and really this kind of innings deserved that flourish that we unfortunately couldn't witness. On the Australian bowling figures, Mitchell Starc finally turning up in this campaign, 3 for 34 in his 10. As an experienced player, turning up in a big game would have felt good for him after not having a great tournament thus far. Josh Hazlewood, another excellent performance, 2 for 12 in 8 overs. And maybe if he'd gone for 2 for 5 in 8, he could have bowled the extra over. Pat Cummins, 3 for 51 and 9.4. As I said, if you look at the stats, you think, what a performance. When in reality, with his decision making and with the way he bowled, he could have cost Australia the game. Those 3 wickets were David Miller trying to go for another 6, George Gutier walking off when the ball hit his arm, and Rabada trying to go for runs. So this 351 could have been none for 70 odd in 9, and if he bowled his 10th over in the last over, he could have gone for more runs. And secondly, if Josh Hazlewood had to bowl the last over, it could have ruined his figure. So Pat Cummins' decision-making almost cost Australia the game. I know they dismissed South Africa for 212, but it could have gone differently. Adam Zampa didn't bowl or didn't go as well today, none for 55 and 7, but as I said, he shouldn't have been bowling that many overs to Miller when he was going well. Glenn Maxwell, none for 35 and 10. Once again, his form as an economical spinner has been fantastic this tournament, and he was good today as well. And Travis said, had he not made that double strike in his over where he dismissed Heinrich Klaasen and Marco Jansen, the phase in which Australia won this game was in the first 12 overs of the game, where they had South Africa 24 for 4. After that, a side that doesn't have much batting depth was able to get to 212 and should have got even more had David Miller's attempt gone for 6. So his double strike was vital, as that partnership was growing in omnipotence, the partnership between David Miller and Heinrich Klaasen, so the double strike was vital. So overall, yes, you could say Australia would have been happy going into the break, but the poor decision making from Pat Cummins could have cost them. They could have been chasing more than 240 and things would have looked different. The Australian openers walked out to bat and made their intentions clear, where after a bit of luck early on, they looked in control. I'd said that Marco Jansen in the India game bowled too short and didn't bowl as quickly, and therefore went for runs. In this game, he bowled fuller but didn't bowl as quickly. At times he gave width, and at times he bowled on midland leg and was taken for runs. for 27 runs in his first 3 overs. And because Lungi Ngidi wasn't playing this game, Rabada could finally open the bowling. Even if Ngidi was playing this game, which he shouldn't have been, Rabada should have opened the bowling, but knowing what they've done in the previous games, they wouldn't have affected that change. And I think he bowled okay in the first couple of overs, but in the 3rd over and the 6th over of the innings, he gave 3 sixes, including bowling a no ball, and 60 runs were scored after the first 6 overs, where if you thought the first 12 overs spelt the fortunes of the game in the first innings, I got the first 6 overs here, 60 runs in 6, chasing 203. That was the game put to bed even more in the second innings, where Australia had to manage things terribly to relinquish their position from here. And there was some comparisons made on commentary between the intent showed in this innings and the previous innings, where Australia bowled far better up front than South Africa bowled in this game in the first 6 overs, and when defending, in my view, a total which was 28 runs below par, I thought 240 would have been a good score. The desperation showed, and that's why they gave runs. So I don't think you can draw comparisons to the first innings and this one, but 60 runs in 6 put Australia in the driving seat if they weren't in the driving seat already. And all they had to do was, Aiden Markram was brought on to bowl, which I thought, yes, he got a wicket, but I would have liked to see Keshav Maharaj and Tabraiz Shamsi brought on earlier. And they were only brought on when the score breached 100, which was baffling. The captaincy, I thought, in the second innings was very ordinary. And Aiden Markram dismissed David Warner on the first ball that he bowled, a very ordinary dismissal where once again, going back to a full delivery, and he was dismissed for 29 of 18, it created the impact. Now, had Steve Smith walked out at number 3, the innings would have meandered along. Australia would have reached a point, maybe a 90 for 1, and then the game would have been even more done than it was. What did they do? They send out Mitchell Marsh. He tries to go for a shot. A fantastic catch by Rassie van der Dussen, yes. But was there any need to send out Mitchell Marsh when you're not playing for net run rate? All you need to do is win the game. And sending out Smith and then Labuschagne to continue building the innings after the foundation would have cemented the advantage. What do you do? Did want to dismiss, then Mitchell Marsh dismissed, and from 60 without loss, you go for 61 for 2, and you slightly open the door by a few centimeters. So I didn't get that at all. Very ordinary tactics once again from Australia. There's a small partnership that ensued between, I think, a partnership of 40 odd between Travis Head and Steve Smith, and you thought they'd go well. Again, Maharaj not being introduced beforehand was ridiculous, and this tactic seemed like what Punjab Kings were doing in the recent IPO season, where, of course, if a left-hander's bang, you can't bring on a left-arm off-spin, even though he's your best bowler on the day you'd think. And the moment Maharaj introduced, Travis Head was dismissed. So I didn't get that at all. The captaincy was very ordinary this innings. Australia were 106 for 3, but still in front. And Steve Smith and Marnus Labuschagne, you thought would be vital to this chase, or even if Australia were batting first, you thought with their ability to build an innings, especially on these kind of tracks, well, any kind of track, but I thought in these kind of tracks it'd be vital. Marnus Labuschagne played he was looking a bit frenetic at the start, but he scored 2 boundaries and was looking settled after he faced 25 deliveries. And a very ordinary shot from Labuschagne after putting out Tabraiz Shamsi. Going for the reverse sweep at that point in time, it didn't make sense at all, and it was dismissed. So Australia were trying quite hard to throw away the advantage that they'd got, whether it be decision making in the first innings and the second innings as well with a bat. Then Glenn Maxwell walked out to bat and played I usually don't say this, but played the most useless shot that you'll ever see. And it seemed like he was still living in Mumbai with the heroics he had completed in that game. He walked out in this game, and for some reason, from the get-go, he tried to hit the spinners. And from 60 without loss in 6, Australia were 137 for 5 and 23.4. And with Steve Smith there, I still thought they'd win the game. He was the only one that was batting with a brain. But yeah, I mean, trying to go for the Hollywood shot in that situation was a terrible decision. And luckily for Australia, Josh Inglis, who I'd said is a decent player of spin, but today he looked much better than most of the players. And him and Steve Smith, you thought that when they got a few singles, the odd boundary here and there, even though the spinners were bowling in tandem, Tabraiz Shamsi and Keshav Maharaj, You thought they'd been introduced too late. Had they been introduced a bit early on, then things would have gone better for South Africa in the second innings, but they couldn't quite push on because I thought Smith and English managed things very well. They took them from 137 to 174 when I think Smith skied the ball off Gerard Coetzee and the catch was taken, where the door was slightly opened up considering Smith was gone. And if Inglis was dismissed, which he was dismissed 19 runs later, you thought maybe in a sensational return South Africa could have done something. But like I said, the game was over by the 12th over of the first innings and the 6th over here. I did think Australia would win the game, but in South Africa, I thought the bowlers did whatever they could from 24 for 4. They could not have fought better than this. The one thing that lost them the game was the tactics. The captaincy I thought was dreadful. You see in the previous games, and this is the reason why I thought a combination where if the coaching staff was involved in the tactics, even in this game, which I wouldn't have been surprised in, whether Bavuma or Markram was captain wouldn't have made a difference. And if the captain was involved in tactics here, then you've got to say this was quite an abysmal performance tactically. I don't know why the spinners were introduced as late as they were. The field set at the end were ridiculous. You're defending 10 off 39. You've got a long on. I mean, that didn't make any sense at all. So Australia deserved to win this game without a doubt, even though the decision making could have cost them, especially in the first innings with how the captain managed things. South Africa, they give everything. Unfortunately, tactics weren't great. I mean, I thought Miller, Klaasen, they did what they could. Klaasen would have been disappointed with his dismissal. Miller, a fantastic innings which deserved to go on for longer. And to those calling this a choke, I don't know what to say. From being 24 for 4 in 12 overs, you recovered to 212, where I thought they were unlucky not to get to 240 with the way things went at the end. As a bowling side, the opposition is 60 for 6 when you're defending a score which is 28 runs on the par. South Africa fought very well in this game, brilliantly in this game. They should be happy with their performance. Just tactically, the decisions weren't made, and I thought also catches weren't taken, even the half chances weren't taken, and that's the reason why, probably the reason why they lost this game. And I think in terms of positives that they've discovered, Gerard Coetzee, even if he went for runs in this game because of inexperience, it was a correct decision to play him, and he gave more than his all. He couldn't bowl his last over, as I think his calf was playing up towards the end. Even Kagiso Rabada, he couldn't bowl his last 4 overs because of an injury that flared up, and that's why towards the end of the innings, things were slightly handicapped, where Aiden Markram, even though he did a good job, he had to bowl when he had to dismiss the batsman there. And the British Shamsi, after missing his lengths against India, 2 for 42 and 10, he was probing. Kishan Maharaj expectedly did 1 for 24 in his 10. So South Africa should be very happy with how they fought in this game. Unfortunately, they haven't got to the knockout stages. And I think, like I said, even in the previous video, I was reviewing the first semi-final. The league phase is my favorite phase in a tournament. And I do feel sad that South Africa haven't got to the final. I wanted them to make their first final, but I think they've discovered a lot of positives in this tournament. And I mean, to those calling this a choke, I don't know what to say, but it's a completely wrong assessment of this game. Australia deserved to win this game, and the final will be played in Ahmedabad against India. It'll be a great final, India versus Australia, and I'll be releasing a preview video soon. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe, share with your friends. Remember, this is my opinion. What's yours? And one last thing, Quinton de Kock retiring from ODIs after this game. He's been a fantastic player. And in my view, yes, there's been the Rohit Sharmas of the world, but in terms of my favourite ODI opener to watch, I'd still say Quinton de Kock is number 1 on that list. I think he's been a fantastic player. He'll still be playing T20 cricket, but I thought it's a sad thing even when he retired from tests, as him counter-attacking at number 7 builds South Africa out in a lot of the time when playing in home tests especially. He was a maverick opening the batting in ODIs, and I'm sure he'll be a maverick opening batting in T20s as well. So, a fantastic ODI career, and I wish him good luck.